important story from Illinois has been making the national headlines. The state is broke and can't service its debt or fully fund a variety of other basic services. There is a budget impasse between the Republican governor and Democrat legislators that prompted Moody's and S&P to downgrade them to essentially junk bond status. It's important to keep in mind this infighting is not to restore fiscal sobriety. It's to pass a budget that enables the state to continue servicing its debt so that it can borrow more money. No long-term solution that achieves sustainability can arise from the current miasma. Of course, they'll eventually reach a deal, politicians always do. However, it will only guarantee even worse problems down the road. This downgrade is unprecedented for a U.S. state, and a harbinger of things to come all across this once great land of ours. And at least 1/3 of all U.S. states are facing similar crises to Illinois at some point in their future. Sure, we can talk about red versus blue and fiscal prudence, etc. If we did, this would just be another article in the National Review that avoids glaring realities. The issue underlying all of this is demographic. Over the long term, a society can only sustain a level of prosperity made possible by its population. Sooner or later, the level of economic prosperity in an area experiencing population transfers will begin to shift from its current level until it reaches parity with the quality of its new population. This is the principle we're witnessing assert itself across the U.S. One of the primary drivers of deficit spending is our need to provide first-world services to third-world people who cannot pay. Sure, it's possible for a large first-world population to sustainably subsidize a small third-world one. That's not the demographic situation in Wymerica. Our leaders have opted to bury their heads in the sands of debt, and that's all coming to an end. It's illuminating to note that Chicago preceded its state in reaching this problem. No complicated formulas to compute here. A city with a massive population of violent, indolent POCs will be a physical wreck regardless of how many SWPLs decide to live there. The color of their skin doesn't match the color of their ink on a government balance sheet. It's not a coincidence that the city's heyday occurred in their total absence, and its decline has mirrored in their increase in the portion of the population. We've watched similar situations play out in smaller municipalities across the country. Besides Chicago being our third largest city, there's really nothing unique about this particular story. Glaring evidence indicates that the liberals recognize this problem. In economics, there's a concept known as revealed preference theory. In short, it means what people are thinking is demonstrated by what they do, not say. While you're not going to find any cultural Marxists declaring, "I don't want to live in a violent, dysfunctional shithole infested by Black and Latin gang members," that's pretty much what they're thinking. Last year alone, a net 80,000 people fled that doomed city, a preference revealed indeed. It would appear that they're not just leaving for more pleasant suburbs outside the city. They're getting the fuck gone. Last year, the state of Illinois lost 115,000 residents. 7 other states, including California obviously, are also suffering from this problem. It's easy to surmise who is leaving, staying, and arriving. Middle-class whites are fleeing the burdensome taxation, dangerous denizens, and general dysfunction. It's not easy to move from a place where you've become established. They're undertaking a substantial effort in order to reach a greener pasture. It's even easier to guess who is staying. But who is coming? Although roughly 115,000 people left, the population only declined by about 37,000. Well, quite a few refugees and African Americans arrived last year. Merely from a financial standpoint, that's rather ominous. Sure, you can pay them less. To their employer, they make financial sense. However, to the taxpayer, they constitute an enormous and growing burden. SNAP benefits, Section 8 vouchers, and education don't pay for themselves. Regrettably, the unsustainability of subsidizing millions of poor brown people is obscured by colossal debts taken on by every level of government. If the cost started coming directly out of white wallets, then the cattle cars would have started rolling a long time ago. Thus, a state like Illinois finds itself caught up in a lethal population transfer. Each year, productive middle-class whites flee, depriving the state of revenue. Meanwhile, non-white people arrive who must then be subsidized. It's impossible for this not to end in disaster, but public discussion of the demographic element to state and local collapse is verboten. The mainstream media will only discuss this malaise in a short-term physical context, as if the demographic drivers of the crisis are completely non-existent. It won't be long before many of these vibrant blue states will look to the federal government for authorization to declare bankruptcy. A Republican House of Representatives will be unlikely to bail them out. It seems that asking for the ability to declare bankruptcy will soon be the sole option, regardless of how angry the bondholders get. This could be beneficial in exposing fault lines because it will cause intense friction mainly between white boomers who actually worked for their pensions and the POCs dependent on handouts. The progressive mind cannot be swayed through the observation of violence. It's more likely that hitting them in the wallet will correct their thinking. The market chaos created by a cascade of these failures should also be highly disruptive to the current order. These are two big reasons to feel hopeful about these impending disasters. In summation, the United States can be considered a flimsy tower with 50 floors, and each state has one of those floors. We focus on the national debt because it's a big scary bomb on the rooftop that could detonate at any tiny interest rate. It distracts people from the fact that most of the floors are rigged with their own smaller explosives, and in the very near future, it's all gonna blow.